The ego of a player in BLUELOCK develops in stages. The first stage is your basic blue aura, and this appears when you first begin to awaken your ego and start playing more for yourself than the traditional 11v11 playstyle. The second stage is character colored aura, which is when a player begins to understand their ego and awakens a weapon that takes full advantage of the player's ego. And the final stage is awakened aura, where the ego of a player becomes a physical object or manifestation unique to them and them alone. Because this stage of ego is the final and most developed stage we have seen in BLUELOCK, not every character in the series has awakened this unique stage. So in today's video, I will be explaining each character's awakened ego and the meaning behind it. So spoilers for the current BLUELOCK manga, being chapter 237 as I'm writing the script, and if you're not caught up to this point, click off this video right now. Also, I'm only going to be covering the official manifestations, not fan art such as Gagamaru having a bear aura as seen here. This is not official, therefore I won't be including it. Same thing with Nico's watchtower here. It's not official, therefore I will not be including it in this video. Starting off with our main character, being Yoichi Isagi, his awakened ego manifestation are puzzle pieces. Now the puzzle pieces have occurred very often in the series, and appeared very early, as we see them as early on as the first season of the anime. Isagi's puzzle pieces originate from his core weapon, being his spatial awareness. Isagi's spatial awareness works by observing over the entire field and coordinating a play from each player's overall abilities in order to create a goal for himself. In this context, each player can be viewed as a puzzle piece, and when you lay all of the pieces together, you get the picture of a goal. That goal being scored by Isagi. Next up is Meguru Bachira, whose awakened ego manifests in the form of his monster. Now Bachira's monster originated from a more depressive setting than most other egos. Bachira as a kid was avoided for his weird personality and obsession with soccer, which in turn resulted in him creating this imaginary friend who shared this passion and obsession with. This monster eventually led his actions during a game, as he refused to play with anyone who didn't meet up to the monster's expectations. Eventually, Bachira conquered this mindset and instead chose to have the monster lead his own dribbles rather than his passes during the 4v4 match against Isagi in the second selection. Bachira then learned how to evolve this monster even further, allowing it to fully embody his plays, giving him a more advanced dribbling style as well as his flow state. Next we have Chigiri Hyoma, whose ego manifests in the form of a red panther. The red panther has been a nickname that was given to Chigiri by multiple players, specifically Nagi and Isagi. However, the reason for this name is thanks to Chigiri's insane sprinting capabilities. Chigiri's ego manifested as the red panther during the Manchan City vs Bastard Munchen match when he began combining his sprinting with Mach cut-ins to create a golden zone formula. His high-speed movements as well as jagged angled dribbles mirror that of a panther dashing around in the wild. Next up is Barou Shoei, and Barou's ego manifests in the form of a lightning bolt lion. Now you could argue that Barou's ego is both lightning bolts as well as a lion, however I believe it's more accurate to just say it's both. See, Barou's personality is the driving force behind his ego's manifestation, as he always believed himself to be the king on or off the field, just in the same way that the lion is still the king of the jungle, whether they're in or not in the jungle. Barou's lightning attribute from his lion's aura is created through his chop dribbling and acute angled cuts, which combine to create what Reo calls a lightning dribble. We see this ego awaken in the 3v3 second selection match against Kunigami, Reo, and Chigiri, where after understanding the feeling of defeat thanks to Isagi, he finally awakens his ego, becoming the king once again. Next is Nagi Seishiro, whose ego manifests in the form of death. Nagi, as we know, is a very lax character, who only really strives to do the bare minimum, if that at all. However, when he gets very invested in play, the aura of a giant skull appears. This manifestation not only comes from his lax nature, but also his trapping ability, which allows him to kill the ball's entire momentum. See? Kill. Death. Oh, never mind. Nagi actually awoke this ego way before anyone else in the canon series, as he did something very similar to Bachira's monster trance in the match against Barou in the first selection. Next up we have Mikage Reo, whose ego manifests in the form of a gridded chameleon. Reo's manifestation is similar to Barou's, as Reo's aura is that of a chameleon, but also has the visual attribute of a grid. Reo's grid-like aura appears when he is copying someone's skill. However, this overall playstyle of copying is known as the chameleon. This specific manifestation is thanks to Reo's all-rounder abilities, as he is now able to train to copy any one person's unique weapon to 99% accuracy. We see Reo awaken this ego during the third selection match against Team A, and then develop it further in the Manchan City vs Bastard Munchen match. Next we have Itoshi Rin, whose ego manifests as the concept of destruction. Rin's ego fully manifested during the BLUELOCK vs U20 match after Itoshi Sae attempted to bind his ego with insults. But thanks to Sae, Rin was able to fully awaken his ego to create a new style fully bent on the destruction of his opponent. We see his ego appear to be that of human-like silhouettes all blending and merging together to look like these kinds of destroyed corpses. This destructive capability allowed for him to not only destroy the entire defensive line of the U20 team, but also counter his brother's unique dribbling style, giving BLUELOCK the victory against the U20 team. Now speaking of Sae, next up we have Itoshi Sae, whose ego manifests itself in the form of rapidly changing numbers. Sae's ego appears to be that of several strings of changing numbers, which represents his calculated demeanor as his passes basically control the field of play. Sae's ego being numbers shows that he can calculate the best player to pass to that would result in a goal being scored. This ego is also representative of his beautiful playstyle, which allows him to win 1v1 situations by making his opponent move first, then easily flowing past them as if their every move was calculated. The next player to talk about is the captain of the U20 team, Oliver Aiku, whose ego manifests in the form of a serpent. This serpent is actually in reference to the chthonic serpent in the Old Testament, and for you Pokemon fans out there, that is actually the same inspiration for Zygarde. This ego also represents Aiku's role on the field, being the captain of the U20 team. His job is to keep everyone in line, and because of his outstanding physique and ability, everyone does trust him to keep the game in balance. Now we don't truthfully know when his ego fully awoke, however we can probably just assume it's when he began playing as a defender. Next up is Shidou Ryusei, whose ego can be interpreted as a demon or a dragon. The more common interpretation is demon, due to his hyper-aggressive playstyle, not to mention his aura being demon wings and Sae calling him a demon. The other, less common interpretation, being dragon, comes directly from his name being a translation to Holy Dragon, and one of his kicking moves being called Dragon Drive. His aura-like wings could also be interpreted to be dragon wings as opposed to demon wings. Now we don't specifically know when his ego first awoke, however we do see it appear during the 2v2 selection match against Kunigami and Reo. Next up is the new Gen 11 striker, Michael Kaiser, whose ego manifests in the form of blue roses and thorns. Kaiser's manifestation is honestly very cool to me, as the thorns and the roses themselves represent different attributes of his character. In floriography, blue roses symbolize the ability to achieve the impossible, which is an attribute of Kaiser's personality that he loves to put on display, seen with his impossibly quick shooting technique, the Kaiser Impact. The thorns represent his impact on other key players in Bastard München, as the thorns are made to affect and disturb the plays of those trying to compete against Kaiser, being Isagi. These thorns also appear against key players on opposing teams, seen with them appearing as Kaiser and Isagi teamed up to stop Barou's shot. But now that we've talked about Kaiser, it's only fair that we bring up Alexis Ness, whose ego manifests in the form of blood cells, both red and white. Now Ness's ego has only manifested a single time, during the Bastard München vs FC Barca match, and there's actually a reason for this. But first, let me explain what his ego actually represents. Ness's ego manifests in the form of blood vessels and cells, and the reason for this is due to his role in Bastard München. Ness's job on Bastard München is to give Kaiser the best possible outcome to score a goal, as his role in offensive midfielder is to use the wing players to provide Kaiser with a perfect path, effectively making him the beating heart of this team. However, recently as BLUELOCK has begun taking over Bastard München, seen with Yukimiya, Corona, Hiori, and Raichi taking over the positions of players Ness would link with in order to provide Kaiser with a pass, he's having a harder time making a difference on the pitch. And because his ego is directly linked to Kaiser awaiting his pass, without him being able to directly set this up, his ego is slowly weakening, explaining why we haven't seen his ego actually manifest since the Barca match. Now next up is Noel Noa, which makes sense as he is the coach of Bastard München. Noah's ego has only manifested a few times, but its manifestation appears in the form of machinery. Noel Noa has been described by Lavinho and Chris Prince as very logical and robotic. His mindset for consideration of who will play also falls to logic, as opposed to any kind of emotional or illogical reasoning. We see his ego manifest in the form of his rigid dribble style called the machine dribble during the Barca match. But considering each star striker can only play for 3 minutes every match, we don't really get to see much of his ego actually manifest. Alright, since we kinda already mentioned him, next up is Lavinho, whose ego manifests in the form of a butterfly. Lavinho's ego manifests in the form of a butterfly due to his grace and free feeling when playing soccer, as this mindset helped influence his elastic dribbling style that also helped Bachira evolve his same dribbling style. He also stated to use the image of a butterfly when playing to help him focus. We see this ego manifest during his explanation of what BLUELOCK needs to learn going to FC Barca, as well as after he scores during the Bastard vs Barca match. Which, can I say, this coloring looks amazing. It looks so good. I just needed to say that. Next up is Chris Prince, another world-class player, whose ego manifests in the form of a Titan. Now this isn't your classic Attack on Titan, but rather a hulking humanoid figure of pure physical prowess. It's basically just his stand. Now this ego manifestation derives itself from Chris Prince's overall physique and confidence and such, as after being analyzed by BLUELOCK's system, it was determined that he has a 100% stat rating in each of the 6 calculated stats. This ego also manifests itself from his own understanding of football, with him explaining to those from BLUELOCK that the only way to improve your God-given talent is to develop a strong body, strong enough to take that talent to the next stage of its evolution. We see this with Reo training to copy Sae and Rin, and Nagi trained to possess a stronger frame in order to maximize his trapping. Next up is the last of the world-class players whose awakened ego has been revealed, that being Marc Snuffy, whose ego manifests in the form of a phoenix. Snuffy's ego manifesting as a phoenix is relevant for a couple reasons. The first is in his promise to Barou to take full responsibility of his failures. As the Phoenix is best known for its healing abilities, it takes full responsibility for the wounds inflicted to their comrades. The second is in reference to his playstyle, as unlike the other Master Strikers, he appears to not be aiming to play as a striker, but instead as a supporting role. Snuffy himself, as identified by Isagi, is not out to score goals, but rather assist in the designs he created to help Barou score goals. And the final explanation is in relation to his backstory. So we know that Snuffy's best friend and former soccer teammate passed away, and with this, Snuffy decided to carry on his will and love of soccer onto the next generation, and gave Barou the title of next king of Ubers, the one who would carry on this will for him, the same way that he did for his fallen friend. Next up is the new Gen 11 center back, Don Lorenzo, whose ego manifests in the form of a zombie-like organism. Now this ego manifestation has 2 meanings, like most of the characters that we've talked about so far. The first being his unique weapon, being his control over his waist and core, allowing for him to swing it back and forth during play, leading him to be unpredictable with his dribbling, as the opponent can't track his core to determine where he will be going. The second is his overall effect on Uber's offense, as his presence alone causes everyone to move in a huge zombie-like aggressive counter, as him slowly moving up the field causes everyone else to push the aggressive as well, almost the same way that a zombie affects another by making contact. We see this effect happen after Lorenzo snatches the ball from Kaiser and begins the first offensive push by Ubers. And last but not least is Hiori Yo, whose ego manifested very recently in the form of shattered glass. His manifestation has several meanings. The first being his mindset, as Hiyori's mindset was built around the expectations of his parents, which he shattered, symbolized by the shattered glass. The second being that this ego is supposed to represent a shattered window, as Hiyori's role in this match is to basically mirror Ness's role to Kaiser, as Hiyori's job is to get Isagi the ball in order for him to score. This window is supposed to show the process of their goal scoring formula, as when you look through the window that is Hiori, you see Isagi, the goal scorer. And the last meaning is to reflect Isagi's puzzle pieces, as when you assemble the broken glass together as well as the puzzle pieces, you get a clear view of the final image, being a goal scored by Yoichi Isagi. But that is every confirmed awakened egoist in the BLUELOCK series as of right now. As of me writing the script right now, as I said before, we are on chapter 237 of the BLUELOCK manga. So maybe in future chapters we will have more awakened users, but that is everyone as of right now. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe for more content just like this.